Poor Thomas, or should I say doubting Thomas, for indeed that is the name we hear more often. I saw a cartoon this week that features Thomas, hands on his hips, saying, "It's just not fair. It's not like people go around calling him denying Peter." It's a dreadful mislabeling of the man, if you ask me. Thomas only wants what everyone else has already received, a glimpse of Jesus resurrected. In fact, the word doubt does not appear anywhere in this passage if you go back to the original text. The New Revised Standard Version renders Jesus' words, "Do not doubt, but believe." But Jesus doesn't say not to doubt. He says, "Do not be unbelieving." Doubt, after all, is an element of faith, not a sign of unbelief. And I don't think Jesus need have worried about Thomas being an unbeliever. Because if Thomas were an unbeliever, he'd be off living his life. He wouldn't be sitting up there with the rest of the disciples hoping Jesus might show up again. He is there because this is the place where Jesus was last seen. He's up there waiting, wanting to see evidence of this amazing thing that has taken place. Those aren't the actions of an unbeliever. That's someone who's still engaged with the push and pull of his faith, who's willing to struggle and wait and watch and hope. Thomas means the twin. And as my friend and fellow pastor Daryl Fleming likes to say when he preaches this text, he's your twin if you want him. And I know he is the twin of many of us because many of you and people in the church have told me that you have struggles and questions and doubts. He's a twin that folks would be blessed to have. I'd certainly like to write him into my family tree. Rather than trying to diminish him as so many have done with the doubting moniker, today I suggest that Thomas has the most robust faith of any of the disciples. He doesn't grandstand like Peter, "Watch me walk on water. Jesus, you will never wash my feet." Nor does he jockey for position like James and John, who elbow each other out of the way to see who might sit at Jesus' right hand. Consider the places we meet Thomas in the Gospel of John. We see him in the story of Lazarus in chapter 11, the man whom Jesus loved and who is ill and later dies. Lazarus' sisters have called for Jesus, who is game to go to Judea, but the disciples say, "No, don't go there. The Jewish authorities want to stone you. That's the last place we want to be." But Thomas, notably, does not join the chorus of people eager to save Jesus' skin and their own. He says, "Let's go, so that we may die too." And we meet Thomas again a few chapters later in chapter 14. Jesus is teaching about God's house, which has many rooms. "Do not let your hearts be troubled," he says. "I go to prepare a place for you. You know the way to the place where I am going." And Thomas answers, actually, we don't know the way. Now, we might ding Thomas for interrupting what is one of the most eloquent discourses of Jesus, except that his question is vital if you actually care about following the man. You don't ask that question about the way unless you intend to go where Jesus wants you to go. So, that's Thomas in chapters 11 and 14. And then we have chapter 20 to round out our character sketch. We just heard that the first time Jesus appears post-resurrection, Thomas is off somewhere. I've often preached that Thomas is the patron saint of the day late and the dollar short crowd. They all get to see Jesus while he's off buying Cheetos and Mountain Dew at the 7-Eleven. But that's not right either. Where is Thomas? What is he doing when Jesus appears the first time? Well, it seems obvious, doesn't it? He's not on a beer run. He's looking for Jesus. Mary Magdalene said he's risen, so Thomas is going to find him. He's certainly not going to cower behind a locked door, quivering with the other disciples for fear of the religious authorities. Thomas is the only one brave enough to be on the outside. So let's call him Courageous Thomas, not Doubting Thomas. In the years to come, after Jesus is no longer with them, the disciples will go on to spread the good news and found churches. And Thomas has a special distinction. He is the only one of the disciples to have ventured beyond the Roman Empire to spread Christianity. The tradition tells us that he established churches in southern India, for heaven's sake. Thomas is a man of movement. Let's go to Judea, even if it means our death. I don't know the way, Jesus, but I want to know, so tell me. I'm not going to sit up here in the upper room with the door bolted. If Jesus is alive, I'm going to go find him, and I'm not going to be afraid. That search, that movement takes him all the way to India, further than any disciple was willing to go. Before he was a United States Senator, Cory Booker was the mayor of Newark, New Jersey. Several years ago, Booker was coming home one night and he saw his neighbor's house engulfed in flames. A woman standing nearby screamed that her daughter was still inside the house, and so without thinking, Cory Booker ran into the house. He and members of his security detail were able to save the woman and others who were inside. Cory threw the woman over his shoulders, sack of potatoes style, and ran through the flames. He suffered smoke inhalation and a few second-degree burns, but he and the others are okay. Now, as often happens on the internet, people decided to have some fun with this and inflate this government bureaucrat into a butt-kicking hero. A Twitter feed sprang up on Friday when that happened called Cory Booker Stories, and they are the 21st century equivalent of the tall tale. When Batman needs help, he turns on the Cory Booker signal. When Chuck Norris gets nightmares, Cory Booker turns on the light and brings him warm milk until he calms down. Smoke was treated for Cory Booker exposure. Those are fun, aren't they? But the detail that made me sit up and take notice in this story was from an interview that Booker gave the next day, in which he said that the decision to go in was a come to Jesus moment. Now, he probably means come to Jesus as in a moment of decision. That's how we normally think about come to Jesus. But think about what that phrase means literally. Come to Jesus. He went toward a person in grave danger and called it a come to Jesus moment. I hear strains of Matthew 25 in that. For I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me a drink. I was perishing in a burning building and you dove in and saved me. That which you did to the most vulnerable and imperiled, you did to me. Thomas, our disciple with the robust faith, would approve. He was a come to Jesus kind of person. One of the other texts assigned for this day is from the book of Acts. A few years back, some preacher friends and I were puzzling about how to connect Thomas with this snippet from the early church. It's from chapter 4, verses 32 and following. Now the whole group of those who believed were of one heart and soul, and no one claimed private ownership of any possessions, but everything they owned was held in common. There was not a needy person among them, for as many as owned lands or houses sold them and brought the proceeds of what was sold. They laid it at the apostles' feet, and it was distributed to each as any had need. Sometimes we press this text from Acts into arguments about communism and socialism, and I think that misses the point. The point is this: the church helped create an alternate system in which everyone's needs were taken care of. Nobody had too much. Everyone had enough. Everyone. It is the church's job to lift up an alternate vision in which that is possible. It takes a robust faith to do so. And if Thomas is our twin, then we have no choice. Notice that Thomas does not say, unless I see Jesus walking around in a perfect body with a halo. No, he says, unless I see the puncture wounds in his hands, unless I see the split in his side, unless I see that Jesus is a Jesus who suffered the depths of human pain and lived, then what's the point? Unless I see that Jesus is the one who goes right to the heart of human suffering, taking it on, then I have no use for him. That is the Jesus that is worthy of Thomas's faith, and the Jesus that is worthy of our faith. Thanks be to God. Amen.